Regular Show, alongside these other two banger cartoons, dominated the 2010s. Unlike its name, the episodes always started off as a mundane workday that immediately escalated until all hell broke loose. What separates this show from a show like Adventure Time is that it didn't have deep lore. In fact, it followed an anthology structure until they went to space. That is, except for one overarching plot, Mordecai's, and to a lesser extent, Rigby's love life. See, when I initially came up with the idea for this video, I didn't realize just how long and complicated Mordecai's journey to find a partner was. But upon rewatching the show, I was shocked at the amount of cringy, stupid, and downright unfaithful moments in the show. So I decided to go back and sift through Mordecai's love life. But not just that, I wanted to compare him to another love-struck idiot from another show, Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother, all to determine who is the bigger simp. This is Mordecai versus Ted Mosby. If you're new around here, please subscribe. I make video essays on games, shows, and movies almost every week, and if you enjoy this video, it would mean a lot if you could leave a like. Also, I want to stress again that this is mostly just a fun video, and comparisons aren't supposed to be taken so literally. With that out of the way, let's get to the video. To begin, let's just define the word simp, because like every other word on the internet, this word has lost its meaning. According to Wikipedia, yeah, I'm using this because this isn't a university essay.
You're using Wikipedia as your source of information.
A simp is defined as someone who shows excessive attention, sympathy, or devotion to another person and doesn't receive the same in return. Now, this definition is somewhat flexible, so I'm just gonna say that a simp is someone who's doing too much. Someone desperate and unaware that they're sacrificing a bit too much of themselves to win over someone.
You probably shouldn't go, Margaret. I bet your boyfriend won't like you going on a camping trip with two dudes.
Ugh, what boyfriend? I'm not seeing anyone right now. Guys are jerks.
God, I know, right? Guys are the worst.
There's a fine line between doing something out of love for someone and doing something when you know they wouldn't do the same for you. There's a kind of imbalance. So while I go through Mordecai's journey, I'll keep this definition in mind and see where it fits and where it doesn't. With that, we come to season 1 of Regular Show, to the episode Caffeinated Concert Tickets. Mordecai and Rigby are watching an advert for a band called Fist Pump. Turns out they're playing live in town, and Mordecai says,
"There's gonna be so many losers at that concert.
We have to go to that concert."
Then Margaret approaches them and says that she's going to the concert because she used to listen to them when she was a kid. And what happens?
It's gonna be fun. Are you guys gonna go?
I'm totally gonna go."
Oh, so now you're gonna...
Bad start, Mordecai, because this is clear simp behavior. What supports this more is what Rigby says next.
I can't believe you're going to a fist pump concert just for some lady pecs.
Mordecai was initially shitting on the band, but the minute the girl he likes is going, he switches up his whole demeanor and opinion. Also, this physical abuse becomes a core part of Mordecai and Rigby's relationship, and quite frankly, it only gets worse from here. Later on, the two grind some extra jobs to get the money for the tickets, another thing Mordecai would never do of his own volition, but unfortunately, the regular ones are sold out, and the only ones left are the deluxe front row seats, which are a lot more expensive. The two are completely exhausted when Mordecai spots Margaret. From that one glance, he decides to do the final chore left, mowing the lawn, which is practically the entire park. Standard simp behavior. Eventually, some nonsense happens, and the two make it to the concert. Mordecai sees Margaret a few rows back, and she introduces him to her current boyfriend, and he realizes that he did all that work for nothing. Now, this moment in Regular Show reminds me of what Ted Mosby did every year on the night of Halloween. See, one night, he met this girl he named the Slutty Pumpkin. She was a joy to talk to, but a few moments later, he lost her phone number. So every year, he goes to the same party, wearing the same costume, in hopes he'll see her again, instead of going out with his friends and having a fun night out. Now, the comparison isn't exact, but the similarities are there. Both Mordecai and Ted have this inherent need to put who they like over their own well-being. Ted only met her once, yet he spent so many years trying to find her, and when he did meet her again a few seasons later, the two were a horrible match. Ted was doing this out of blind hope and faith. Mordecai, on the other hand, was doing all that work just so he could go to a concert with Margaret. Wait, scratch that. See her at the concert? He didn't even ask her out. She already had a boyfriend. So purely because starting the video off with a draw would be boring, I'm giving the point to Mordecai. We now arrive at season 2, to the episode It's Time. This one's big, so strap in. Rigby gets tickets to watch the zombie movie with Mordecai, but he instead grabs 2 tickets to some shitty chick flick called Pajama Sisters 2. He finally wants to ask Margaret out, but he keeps doing this.
"Hey, Margaret, I was wondering, would you, like to,
Rigby then makes a joke, which causes Margaret to laugh. Mordecai gets pissed in classic Mordecai fashion. However, the guy will not admit to Rigby that he's jealous. Later, Rigby asks Margaret to the zombie movie since Mordecai keeps stuttering, and she says yes. More importantly, she agrees because she actually likes those kinds of movies, while Mordecai assumed she'd prefer the cheesy pajama movie. Again, he's doing too much and catering to what he thinks are her interests instead of his own. After this, we get this funny scene where Mordecai just stares blankly at the static of a TV, like he's Patrick Bateman. Rigby walks walks in, taunting Mordecai about his upcoming date. Mordecai warns him to cancel it, but Rigby refuses. So he steals the battery from Rigby's watch and steals all the clocks in the house to make him late. Now, bear with the regular show logic here, but Mordecai microwaves the clock so that Rigby doesn't know what the time is, which sends the two flying toward another dimension. The two begin to fight when Rigby says,
I just wanted to see zombie dinner party with my bro, who flaked on me for some girl who doesn't even know he exists!
I'll kill you!
yeah, so canonically, Mordecai kills Rigby over a girl that isn't even his. Eventually, this deity called Father Time gives Mordecai a second chance, and he finally admits to Rigby that he's a little jealous. Now let's go over to Ted Mosby for a comparison. Yeah, well, no surprise there. Honestly, this video doesn't even need to exist. This alone makes Mordecai win. Ted has never gone this overboard for a girl, so it's safe to say that Mordecai gets another point yet again. This may change later, but we'll see. We now arrive at the episode Butt Dial. Mordecai sits on his phone and accidentally records an extremely cringy song about how much he loves Margaret. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize he's called her by accident and sent the message to her voicemail.
I can't believe how hot she is, makes my insides feel like knotted twists. Her pretty face and those long legs, and I hope someday we are more than just friends.
After Mordecai and Rigby get sent into this void because they try to break into her phone, Margaret eventually hears the voicemail, and surprisingly, she likes it, mostly in an ironic way. She even sets it as her own custom ringtone, which is a hint that she feels the same way about him. Now, Mordecai here gets a pass because Margaret somewhat felt the same way, so he's not really going overboard for her. Now, what moment in How I Met Your Mother best compares to this episode? Look no further than the pilot episode. Ted meets Robin for the first time, and ever since, he can't stop thinking about her. After having their first date, he goes to her house at night, and the two begin to slow dance when he blurts out,
I think I'm in love with you.
Another reminder, he met her on the exact same day. Not only did Ted say this, but he also stole a blue French horn from the restaurant where they had their first date. In Butt Dial, this was more or less the first time Mordecai professes his feelings for Margaret, just as Ted does. Obviously, Robin is freaked out by what Ted says, and she tells him that she's not looking to get married or start a family yet. Ted is doing way too much, and so I have to give him the point here. In the episode Yes Dude Yes, Mordecai yet again musters up the courage to ask out Margaret when he comes across this.
Yes, dude. Yes.
After learning that Margaret is getting married to some other dude, he digs himself into a huge rut. Eventually, Rigby gets him into online dating, where he meets CJ. He openly tells her that he's not looking for a relationship right now. She takes it well and says that they can just be friends. And so, the two have a fun day hanging out. That's when Mordecai asks her out to a movie, and she agrees. Things seem to be looking up when Mordecai runs into Margaret. She's about to introduce Mordecai to what we think is her fiance, but he runs off, and from that one interaction, he goes back into his rut. Benson, of all people, comes to him to tell him to get off his ass and tell Margaret how he really feels. After all, he hasn't ever come up to her and directly told her. There was the voicemail, but I guess that wasn't direct enough. So Mordecai comes to the coffee shop and Margaret introduces them to her cousin, not her fiance. Now, after learning this, instead of telling Margaret directly how he feels, he decides to ask her out to the same movie he asked CJ out to. And who walks in? And we get one of the most cringe scenes in the entire show. CJ is understandably upset since she had started to really like Mordecai and thinks he's playing some kind of game. Mordecai comes clean with her and tells her the truth. She calms down, and for now, they don't stay friends. Margaret then comes to Mordecai, giving him sly remarks that indicate she's jealous. This is arguably one of Mordecai's worst moments, but don't worry, the worst one comes later. Now, what moment from How I Met Your Mother best relates to this? That is the episode Milk. See, earlier on in season 1, Ted signed up for a matchmaking service that would supposedly find him the perfect woman for him. It doesn't. That is until this episode, where he is given a call that they found her. Ted reads her file, and she ticks every box of his. And so, the day he has that date, some nonsense happens with Lily, and he has to go help her. She then ditches him, and he has to call up Robin to pick him up. Now, the conversation they have in the car is interesting. She asks him where this perfect woman ranks on the Ted Mosby checklist. He responds that she's basically perfect. She even wants to have 2 kids just like he does, a boy and a girl. Robin, on the other hand, wants no kids at all. On top of that, with every small detail he mentions of his perfect date, Robin is the exact opposite. When she drops him off, Ted has a ridiculous epiphany, having a vision of his future marriage where he looks over at Robin like he's making a mistake. So Ted decides not to meet his perfect match and tells Marshall and Lily,
I don't want perfect. I want Robin.
Now, I've seen this show several times over the years, and I've never wanted to slap this guy harder. Like Mordecai, Ted chooses not to move on from his so-called first love and tries to pursue her again. Mordecai, in a way, does the same, asking Margaret to the same movie he asked CJ to. Obviously, the nuances are different, since Mordecai found out she's not getting married to anyone. This one one's hard to judge. Mordecai falls into a deep depression without ever confessing his feelings to Margaret, while Ted doesn't even meet his perfect match. Instead, he chases after a girl who's his complete opposite. For the sake of this video, I'm giving the point to Ted, mainly because he left a poor woman at the bar instead of meeting her. He could have at least met her. To me, it seems like he didn't want to because he knew he'd like her, which would mean he would have to let go of Robin. On that basis, and to keep things more interesting, the score is all tied up at 2-2. You can let me know down below if you disagree and who should get the point here. Now we have a quick lightning round, which is mostly just going to be a recap. In the season 3 finale, Bad Kiss, Mordecai and Margaret share an intimate moment when he can't find his wallet in the car. This is where they have their first kiss. The only issue is that Mordecai has bad breath. Embarrassed, he runs home and uses Rigby's time travel machine to undo it. This causes a bunch of weird paradoxes everywhere, until finally, Mordecai ends up back at the same moment in the car. When the kiss is about to happen, he ends up finding his wallet and the kiss never happens. Now, there's really nothing this crazy that Ted Mosby does in How I Met Your Mother, so I think it's fair to say that another point gets given to Mordecai. In the episode Do or Diaper, Muscle Man makes a bet with Mordecai. He has to kiss Margaret by midnight Friday, or Muscle Man has to wear a diaper for the whole week. Now, Mordecai does ask Margaret out on Friday, and when he's about to kiss her, he overcorrects from the last time he had to kiss her. He goes overboard on making sure he has the best breath, which, in classic regular show fashion, causes some kind of snowstorm at the park. Margaret finds out about the bet, which obviously pisses her off, and Mordecai admits that he's an idiot and only did it because ultimately he really likes her. She then asks what the time is, and there's only a minute left. She comes close to him, going in for a kiss, but at the last minute,
Have a nice week, diaper boy.
and so Mordecai loses the bet and wears a diaper for a whole week. He, however, isn't upset by it. He smiles, knowing that Margaret had a nice time that night, and that one day he'll get another opportunity. I like they went for this route, even though Kid Me was mad that the writers kept delaying the two getting together. In the episode Picking Up Margaret, Mordecai promises her he'll give her a lift to the airport.
Wait, are you sure you want to give me a ride and not because you bet someone you could or...
What? Come on. When have I... Be quiet.
But of course, Mordecai gets in trouble with some gang who hate cell phones. After having an intense driving skirmish, the two barely make it to the gate, and Mordecai hesitates yet again in telling Margaret how he feels about her. It's even more annoying when you realize that the entire episode, she's been outright stating to him how much he matters in her life. So, as she's about to leave, she sighs and finally gives him a kiss. The episode ends with him jumping for joy. Now, we have the episode Meteor Moves. There's a meteor shower happening at night, and so the gang go to this mountain called Makeout Mountain. The entire premise of the episode is Rigby telling Mordecai to get out of the friend zone, because ever since that one kiss in the last episode, he's done nothing. And the entire episode is Mordecai hesitating in pulling the trigger. When the meteor shower happens, Mordecai and Margaret become physically trapped in the friend zone by this floating head. The head explains to Mordecai how he's hesitated so many times over the years, despite having countless openings. Eventually, Mordecai convinces the head that he's not gonna back out this time, and finally he kisses her. They get out of the friend zone and officially become a couple. Now, again, I was racking my head as to which How I Met Your Mother episode is similar to this, and I settled on the episode where Ted finally gets with Robin. At the very least, it feels like a fair baseline comparison. See, in the episode Come On, one of the main things the gang keeps bringing up is how the universe has been constantly sending Ted signals that he and Robin shouldn't be together.
That wasn't me. That was the universe.
Yet he decides to try one more time with a big gesture, getting a blue string quartet in her apartment, referencing the blue French horn he stole. She is pleasantly surprised but also still hesitant, because at the end of the day, they want different things in life. Ted also asks her on a romantic getaway for the weekend, but she can't anymore because she has a work camping trip. A trip that was initially cancelled because of the weather, but the universe had other plans and pushed the stormy weather away. Now, you'd think that was enough for Ted to finally give up, right?
Screw that. This ain't over.
He decides,
I'm gonna make it rain.
No.
Okay.
God.
and he decides that he's gonna do a rain dance.
Did you just say a rain dance?
Yes.
A rain dance.
Yes.
And so for a few hours, Ted does this rain dance and begs the universe to make it rain, and by some miracle, it does. He runs over to her apartment and they finally get together. Other than the fact that Ted and Mordecai finally get together with their first loves, the other similarity is how they both had to have the universe intervene in mystical ways. Mordecai was chronically hesitant over the years and only did something about it until the universe imprisoned him somewhere. And Ted was practically obsessed with Robin, refusing to give up until he defied logic. Although their approaches were different, the end result was the same. nothing. And because Ted refused to just move on and resorted to something as ridiculous as this, he gets another point, and the score is tied up at 3-3. In the next episode, Family Barbecue, Mordecai meets Margaret's family and tries to get a handshake from her father, something he refuses to do with any guy Margaret brings home. Mordecai finally gets it after a cannibal contest goes haywire and they almost die. I don't know if I would classify this as simp behavior, but again, it is very over the top and something Ted would do too. So I'm just keeping the score the same. In Stake Me Amadeus, Mordecai wants to officially ask Margaret to be his girlfriend, but unfortunately she gets accepted into her dream school and she practically dumps him. You can't help but feel bad for the guy. When Ted and Robin break up the first time, it's for very similar reasons, in that they want different things for their own futures. We now arrive at the season 5 premiere, Laundry Woes. Mordecai is deeply depressed because of what happened, something we saw only a fraction of back in Yes Dude Yes. It takes a while, but with the help of Rigby and the others at the park, Mordecai gets his life back on track. But one day, when the pair are at the laundromat, Mordecai spots Margaret's sweater she left behind. He smells it and is instantly reminded of all the good times he had with her. He starts going crazy, saying she left it for him to find and that he should go return it. So that's what he does. He drives 20 hours to go see her at her college, while Rigby tags along. It is here that the pair fight over how Mordecai is letting her cloud his judgment, almost like he wants to be sad. And just like he did back in It's Time, Mordecai pushes Rigby out of the car, stranding him in the middle of nowhere. Eventually, Mordecai makes it to her college, crashing the car after he hallucinates an evil version of Margaret in the car. However, when he sees her, he contemplates whether it's the right decision. He realizes that giving it to her won't help him move on, and if anything, it'll just bring back the heartache. Margaret looks over to where Mordecai previously was, only to see nothing. Mordecai throws her sweater in the trash before he catches up with Rigby, who ran all the way to the college. This was an important step in Mordecai's growth. He learned that just because something feels like the right thing to do doesn't mean it really is. Now, there is surprisingly an eerily similar moment in How I Met Your Mother. Toward the end of the show, Robin loses a locket that has deep sentimental value to her. Ted tries to track it down to give it to her as a wedding gift. He calls his ex-fiancée, Stella, and he books a ticket to Los Angeles to try to look for it in an old storage locker. When he can't find it, he calls Victoria, another of his ex-partners, who is wearing it. She says to him she'll overnight it to his place, but then another one of his ex-girlfriends, Jeanette, this psychopath, intercepts it. So he meets with her at a bridge, and despite her being an absolute loony, she gives Ted a dose of reality.
How long have you been hung up on Robin? 8 years? And you're still killing yourself to fetch dumb little trinkets for her.
And after he states a monologue about how he's in love with Robin, how he would do literally anything for her, Jeanette throws it away. And that would be the end of it, but we later learn that he actually jumped in to grab it. Unlike Mordecai, Ted refused to let Robin go. He threw her sweater away, realizing it's time to move on with his own life. Ted, however, even though she's getting married to his best friend, still traveled to a different city, speaking to multiple of his exes, one of which left him at the altar, and when one of them throws it into a lake, he jumps in and swims after it. You can argue all you want about how this is love at its purest form, but personally, this is ridiculous and borders on obsession rather than love. Ted gets the point here. In the episode New Year's Kiss, Mordecai goes to a masquerade party where his date for the night basically uses him. After that, he speaks to another girl who ends up kissing him spontaneously for New Year's, and when they take their masks off, it turns out it was CJ. She then runs off, leaving Mordecai confused. Eventually, the two make up and become good friends. That is, until the episode I Like You High. In classic Mordecai fashion, he sends CJ a text that autocorrects to I Like You High. In fact, in one scene, the gang says,
"So you pulled a Mordecai, huh?"
What the?
In How I Met Your Mother, the gang often calls Ted's tendency to overthink love as a
Classic Mosby.
Just another similarity there. The pair is eventually teleported to that same dimension we saw back in Butt Dial, where Mordecai refuses to confront his feelings. He opts to quite literally swim to the endless void until finally he says that a part of him hopes that Margaret might come back.
Sometimes I'll see something or I'll smell something and it makes me think of her even though I don't want to. I really like CJ. She's amazing. But is it fair for me to go out with her if I still think about Margaret sometimes?
A very natural thought. Of course, the times he spent with Margaret will always mean a lot, but since she's gone, it's time to just let go. Besides, if you were to ask me, Mordecai and CJ had way more common interests. It always seemed like he was forcing himself to conform to Margaret's interests when CJ naturally liked everything he did. So in the end, he asks CJ out on a date, and the two become a couple. However, when Margaret comes back to town, during a Christmas party, Mordecai speaks to her and the two reminisce about old times and
Oh, for goodness sake!
So CJ gets mad and Mordecai is left in this weird limbo. In the next episode, Sad Sacks, the entire episode has Mordecai planning and performing elaborate acts to try and get CJ to forgive him, but each time she wants nothing to do with him. That is, until he creates an intricate display of lights outside her apartment. CJ sees this, and after days of ignoring him, she forgives Mordecai and the two get back together. Now, when I look back at How I Met Your Mother, what episode does Ted do something eerily similar? Look no further than the episode The Symphony of Illumination. Robin finds out that she can't have children. apartment, and she tells no one. Throughout the episode, she's constantly reminded of this harsh truth in everyday interactions, and when she comes home one day, Ted begs her to tell him what's wrong. He wants to cheer her up and says that it's his job to.
It's not your job to cheer me up.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Bear in mind, at this point in the show, Ted and Robin are not a couple, they just live together. After taking a walk, she comes back to the apartment to see an even more elaborate display of lights. Ted says,
You don't want to tell me what's wrong? Fine. I don't need to know, but you can never stop me. I'm trying to cheer you up.
listen, I get that Ted is a great guy who is shown time and time again to go out of his way for his friends. But you see, Robin isn't just any other friend. Because a few episodes later, Ted reveals to her he's loved her for the longest time. In fact, a feeling that hasn't really left him ever since their first breakup. This display was not a platonic way to cheer her up. This was him showing her how much he loves her. While Mordecai went overboard trying to get CJ to forgive him, it was understandable given that he kissed Margaret. Ted, on the other hand, wasn't even dating Robin, yet he chose to go out of his way to cheer her up. Again, for the sake of this video, I'm not shitting on him for cheering up Robin, but he definitely gets the point here. Later on, Margaret reveals to CJ that she has a boyfriend, and so CJ decides the four of them should go out on a double date. This is because she feels guilty for always acting erratically whenever Mordecai and Margaret are together. However, it turns out that Margaret lied, and the truth is that she still has feelings for Mordecai. Looking back now, Margaret really was for the streets. Now we arrive at the most crucial episode, dumped at the altar. Following Margaret's confession, Mordecai finds himself in a weird spot. He is still with CJ, but the episode is portrayed as though Mordecai needs to make a final decision, CJ or Margaret, and it all goes down at Muscle Man's wedding. After Mordecai finds a letter written to Muscle Man by his late dad, he reads it out loud.
It's normal to have doubts, but when you find yourself wondering if you made the right choice, remember the old Sorenstein rule.
Trust your gut.
And what happens next is by far the most uncomfortable and cringe scene in the entire show. Mordecai says he doesn't know who his soulmate is.
So where's my soulmate? Are they in this room? It could be anyone. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's that really old lady, I don't know.
And so Mordecai tries to follow his gut. He goes to CJ, who is obviously livid, stating that she already knows what he's gonna say.
You didn't even point in my direction.
And after running off, Mordecai follows her and she breaks up with him. Now, although it's not an exact comparison, it's somewhat ironic that Ted was also dumped at the altar, in this case by his own fiancée at his own wedding. But there's another comparison I want to make. In the episode Nothing Good Happens After 2 a.m., Ted is in a long distance relationship with Victoria, but he is called over by Robin late at night, knowing full well it's a booty call. The thing is, Victoria told Ted previously that they needed to talk, and Ted believes it's an inevitable breakup, so he goes over to Robin's. Ted lies to her, saying that he and Victoria just broke up. But then, Ted goes into the bathroom to take a call from Victoria and realizes that he took Robin's phone. When he walks out, he finds Robin on Ted's phone with Victoria. She throws it to him and tells him to piss off. On the way back home, Ted breaks up with Victoria on the phone. Both Ted and Mordecai are in very similar positions in their respective episodes. They both have two girls to choose from, as fucked up as that sounds, and in the end, Ted and Mordecai lose both of them in the span of an instant, all because of their own stupidity. Ted's was born out of lust, I guess, and Mordecai's was born out of fear. It isn't clear from this episode alone if Mordecai was choosing Margaret over CJ, or if he just stopped feeling a certain way towards CJ. So I don't know if I can classify this as simp behavior. Ted's was, however, so he gets the point again. In the season 7 premiere, Mordecai goes missing for 2 weeks because he went to some place called Dumptown, USA, a place where people go who have been dumped. Mordecai becomes a slob, adopting a carefree attitude even when Rigby arrives to take him back home. Eventually, he gets through to him and the two escape. That's when Rigby says a very important line.
You want simple? Take a break from dating, man. Forget about the chicks and just focus on what's best for Mordecai.
Yeah, you're right.
A moment I want to compare this to is the episode Karma. This episode takes place directly after Robin rejects Ted in season 7 and moves out, leaving her room empty. He tries to use her room for a variety of things, like pottery and grilling, yet he finds her room is continuously haunted. At this point, Marsha and Lily have moved out to their place in Long Island. When Ted finds out that they're unhappy there, he decides to give them back the apartment.
See, for me, this place had begun to feel a little haunted. At first, I thought it was haunted by Robin, but now I think it was haunted by me. Well, no ghost is at peace until it finally moves on.
This is a big step for Ted. He clutched onto that apartment like it was a living person, and in a way, that apartment kind of represents Robin. Although he doesn't speak to her for a while after this, it's a stepping stone to him moving on. It just takes him a long time, or never for that matter. More on that later. The final episode I want to mention that touches on Mordecai's dating life is the episode Just Friends. In this episode, Mordecai and Margaret are forced to hang out alone, the first time since they've dated. It's extremely awkward at first, and the two are constantly bombarded with signs that they should be together.
Nothing romantic here. Bunch of dudes driving fast, gas fumes, noisy engines.
What's that?
Exactly.
They even witness a potential future of them getting married and having kids. In the end, the two look at each other and realize they don't want any of that right now. Instead, they decide,
live in the moment? Take it easy on relationships right now? It's the best thing for the both of us?
The episode does end with a subtle hint that they may end up together in the future, but that isn't the case. See, in the finale, after the gang returns from space, Mordecai leaves the park and focuses on his art. And a few years later, he meets this Batgirl named Steph, and they end up having a family together. Now, how does Ted Mosby's story end? Ted eventually meets the mother of his two children, Stacy. They live a wonderful life together, but unfortunately, she falls ill and dies. A few years later, Ted tells his kids the story of how he met their mother, and that was all, right? Wrong. You see, the writers decided not to make it that simple. In the finale, it's revealed that Ted told his kids this story as a not-so-subtle way to ask them for permission to be with Robin. Not only does this throw out all the character development Ted went through in the last season, where he quite literally lets go of her, but it also feels disrespectful to his late wife. So despite the universe telling him time and time again to move on, Ted goes up to Robin's apartment holding the blue French horn. Imagine that toward the end of regular show, we see Mordecai meet his wife Steph. We as the audience grow to love and appreciate her, only for her to die in the last episode, and he gets back together with Margaret. I like that Mordecai ended up with some random girl. It would be too much of a cop-out for him to end up back with someone like CJ or Margaret, especially after how he ended things with them. I know both shows have different narratives, with regular show not solely focusing on the romance plots, but I'd be pissed if Mordecai went back to Margaret after the show made it clear that these two just don't work. With that, the score becomes 7-3. But is it really though? If it were up to me, this would be the score. There's no way I'm letting Mordecai off by giving him a single point for killing his best friend. Now, I know I tricked all of you by giving them the same score, especially since I said a tie would be too boring, but I believe both of their stories have important takeaways when it comes to relationships. Mordecai's story of finding love mirrors Ted's in a lot of ways. He often went over the top to impress the girls he liked, but a core aspect of his character was that he hesitated a lot. He was afraid of taking a shot, both with Margaret and CJ. On top of that, he kept flip-flopping between them, and in the end, decided that what would be best for him and those around him is to just stop dating for the time being, which couldn't have come at a better time because the gang ended up going to space for a while. Upon returning, he decides to focus on his passions and interests instead of working at the park until he dies. Only after he does that does he meet his one true love. Mordecai's ending reminds me of the ending to 500 Days of Summer. After getting his heart broken by Summer, Tom focuses on himself and his career and eventually meets another girl who may or may not be his future wife. These two stories made me realize that in order to find someone, you first have to be someone. Focus on what matters first, your career, your passions, your being, before trying to find someone to start a life with. Ted Mosby, however, is at a very different stage of life than Mordecai. He supposedly found his own passions already, that being architecture, and then proceeded to try and find his one true love. However, he often sacrificed his well-being to do so, whether it's rushing in too early to be with someone, kissing someone else while he's in a relationship, or chasing after little trinkets over a girl who's getting married. And when he did find his one true love, she tragically passed away, which led him to go back to a girl who only wanted him when he was in a relationship. So, what is a simp? A simp is defined as someone who shows excessive attention, sympathy, or devotion to another person and doesn't receive the same in return. Ted definitely fits this profile, and so does Mordecai. The question I have for you is, after everything I've recapped, who is the bigger simp, and why? I think they're both simps in their own ways, but please let me know what you ultimately think down below. Again, this video is mainly just for fun, so don't take it too seriously. Both of these characters have their strengths and flaws, and this video isn't supposed to bash any of them, but also f*** Mordecai for killing Rigby, and f*** Ted for getting back together with Robin. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you're new around here, please subscribe and make video essays on all kinds of games, shows, and movies. Consider joining my Patreon for early access, and join my Discord server. You can find all my socials down below. Also, check out my fantasy fiction novel, The Shattered Absolution, if you want a fun and deep story to read. All links can be found down below, and I want to thank you once again for watching.